The West Village. The name conjures up images of cobblestones, jazz, candlelit restaurants, and brownstone stoops made famous by Sex and the City. But what is the West Village exactly?
This former 1960s bohemian enclave is now New York City's most expensive neighborhood. It's iconic, charming, and historic. And as described by popular media,
increasingly filled with young people who are mostly affluent professionals, transplants, and trust fund kids. Before we dive into the history of the West Village, let's briefly discuss geography. The West Village is technically the western portion of the Greenwich Village, a larger neighborhood bounded by 14th Street, Houston Street, Broadway, and the Hudson River. However, these days, the distinction between the West Village and Greenwich Village is often blurred. Tourists, realtors, and even native New Yorkers sometimes use both terms interchangeably. Originally Lenape land, the area that became Greenwich Village was mostly farmland until the 18th century, when it developed into a suburban retreat from New York City. Greenwich Village's beloved irregular street grid survived the 1811 Commissioner's Plan, which transformed Manhattan above Houston Street into the gridded system we see today. The West Village's street layout is a product of its organic growth using chaotic disjointed lines and little formal planning. For nearly 2 centuries, the Greenwich Village has been an area of forward-looking thinkers and progressives. In 1821, the neighborhood became home to what is considered the first black theater in the United States, the African Grove. And educational institutions like NYU and the New School helped foster an intellectual climate.
By the 1940s, Greenwich Village had expanded its artistic footprint. Jazz and bebop clubs like the Village Vanguard, which is the world's oldest continuously operating jazz club, shaped the sound of the post-war era.
Around the same time, an off-Broadway theater and avant-garde film scene flourished as members of the Beat generation settled in the village. In the 1960s, folk revival musicians like Bob Dylan and members of a new and politically conscious youth movement emerged from village cafes. Artists, writers, and activists were drawn to the area for several reasons: its culture, its relatively affordable yet beautiful housing stock, and its well-located position in Manhattan. In June 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn on Christopher Street, which was then a mafia-run gay bar. Instead of dispersing, patrons and neighbors fought back. Riots continued for several nights, and a year later the first Pride March was held in Greenwich Village, marking the start of the modern gay rights movement. In 2016, Stonewall was designated a national monument by President Barack Obama, and to this day Christopher Street remains synonymous with queer resistance. For several decades, Washington Square Park has been associated with LGBT culture and activism, and it's become one of the most popular parks in the city.
Washington Square Park is the symbolic heart of the Greenwich Village. Today it's filled with a mix of musicians, students, and skaters.
And sometimes the smell of weed. In 2024, the park became a popular site for viral events like the Timothée Chalamet lookalike contest. You can really find everything you may need at this park. From homemade chili oil to fashion and philosophy advice to sword fights to interpretive dance to live-streamed Hare Krishna drum circles. A large cluster of NYU buildings surrounds Washington Square Park, making the space feel like the university's closest thing to a conventional college quad. One reason that the West Village looks like it does is due to the efforts of a former longtime resident, urbanist Jane Jacobs, who helped block Robert Moses's proposed expressway through Washington Square Park. Her 1961 book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, showed the importance of the West Village's street life and helped birth the modern preservation movement.
The West Village is one of the few neighborhoods below Central Park that isn't filled with ugly glass towers or sterile skyscrapers. In many ways, the West Village mimics the quality of European neighborhoods. It's quaint, beautiful, and historic, with tree-lined streets, low-rise buildings, and outdoor dining.
While many people credit Jane Jacobs with the preservation of Greenwich Village, Jacobs' true legacy is a bit more complicated. As outlined in The Atlantic, her resistance to development became a model for NIMBYism, even if it had progressive intentions. One that inadvertently restricted housing, entrenched class divides, and turned once diverse neighborhoods into protected enclaves for the rich. Jacobs' ideas have been put into practice by groups like the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation, who lobby the city to block new development in areas deemed historic. While these groups have succeeded in preserving the aesthetic identity of the village and its buildings, some of their efforts have drawn controversy. A large amount of construction and renovation must pass a rigorous approval process by the city's Landmark Commission, in addition to other regulatory hurdles. This means that adding new housing to the West Village has become almost impossible, causing property values to skyrocket in price as the wealthy compete for a severely restricted supply of homes. But housing isn't the only domain impacted by preservationists. In the late 2000s, 2000s, the St. Vincent Medical Center was facing aging infrastructure and financial troubles. In an attempt to modernize, the hospital was going to raise funds for new facilities by building residential towers on its property, which would have required the demolition of 9 historical buildings. Preservationists opposed these plans, interfering with the proposed changes. Eventually, the hospital filed for bankruptcy, and more than 1,000 medical staff lost their jobs. Development of any kind alters the physical appearance of neighborhoods, and it can displace existing residents. But it can also provide essential services like medical care or increase the housing supply, lowering rents and allowing neighborhoods to flourish. As noted by Yoni Applebaum, the West Village had always grown to accommodate demand and to make room for new arrivals. But now, the West Village is frozen in time. By the 1980s, Bohemia had begun its movement to places like the Lower East Side and Williamsburg. Formerly cheap walk-ups in the West Village were now polished brownstones. Art galleries became luxury boutiques, and popular gay bars vanished. The New York Times report from 2007 put it succinctly: "The colorful Bohemia has crossed the tracks, leaving a respectable neighborhood of high rents, big mortgages, and little children. The children replace the gays, the men have left for Chelsea, the women for Park Slope." The West Village is now New York's priciest real estate at $2,400 per square foot, and its brownstones sometimes sell for $5 to $20 million.
The neighborhood's quiet vibe, central location, and beautiful architecture have made it a favorite of wealthy New Yorkers and transplants. The TV show Sex and the City put the Perry Street stoop on the global map.
Today, as if almost out of Sex and the City itself, the West Village is young, female, and rich. Females aged 20 to 39 make up 24% of the neighborhood, compared to just 13% nationwide. And average incomes in the West Village are over $160,000 according to a real estate firm. While the West Village has been like this for some time, a viral 2025 article in The Cut sparked tons of online discussion and critiques of the West Village and its inhabitants. On the internet, young women in the West Village are sometimes criticized for their aesthetic choices, which are often variants of East Coast Greek life fashion. Now, there's nothing wrong with dressing like this. After spending time in Brooklyn, it can actually be somewhat refreshing to see people not trying to look edgy and rebellious. But at times, it feels like the West Village is inhabited by clones, all enjoying their picture-perfect lives in New York, filled with overpriced dinners, hot yoga, and Negronis. The West Village is so affluent and expensive that there are subway advertisements stating that $3,000 per month is a great deal for a studio apartment. But despite the West Village's reputation as a playground for the wealthy, the neighborhood is still home to a few iconic institutions that haven't been displaced by posh restaurants. The fierce and intense chess games at Washington Square Park draw people from all around New York. The legendary dosa man has served affordable and delicious South Indian vegan dosas from a food cart since 2001. And on McDougal Street, Comedy Cellar continues to launch and host top-tier comics. And The Cage, a non-regulation-sized basketball court off West 4th Street, is one of New York's most notable places for street ball. As time has passed, the West Village has evolved, and it's certainly no longer the cradle of counterculture.
The West Village is the romanticized idea of New York. It's New York City without the diversity, chaos, and dynamism found in many of its neighborhoods. But like most places, the West Village can be more than one thing.
It can be charming, basic as fuck, well-preserved, expensive, and also a monument to counterculture and rebellion. The West Village is an example of how to successfully preserve history while also being a textbook case of American NIMBYism. But despite the issues of the West Village, it's hard not to like it, from its low-rise brick buildings to tree-lined streets packed with things to do. The West Village is everything I love and hate about New York City. If you have thoughts about the West Village or the policies that affect it, let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos on New York history. Thanks for watching. Peace.